Hello, I'm Jeff Zeigler, Dean of Academics at Pinnacle Classical Academy here in Shelby, and I'm joined by Dr. Antony Davies. Dr. Davies is the Milton Friedman Distinguished Fellow at FEE, the Foundation for Economic Education, Associate Professor of Economics at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, and co-host of the podcast Words and Numbers, among the top 1% of podcasts in the nation. Dr. Davies authors monthly columns on economics and public policy for the Philadelphia Inquirer and Pittsburgh Tribune Review. He has written a book on understanding statistics, published by the Cato Institute, and has co-authored hundreds of op-eds for, among others, the Wall Street Journal, Los Angeles Times, and Washington Post. His YouTube videos on economics, government, and policy have garnered millions of views. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Davies.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
At Pinnacle Classical Academy, where you spoke earlier today, we emphasize the importance of great works of literature and primary texts, from ancient authors like Homer and Aristotle to more recent authors like the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Why do you think primary texts and great works of literature are important in a student's education?
I think that primary texts are important in students' education because we're asking the student, particularly students at the age you have, to begin to create thoughts of their own and to give them thoughts that are in some sense pre-digested by secondary authors kind of obviates the point. I'm most impressed with the students at Pinnacle in that clearly they're well prepared as you would expect of high school students from an excellent school, but more than that, they're inquisitive. They have a broad base of knowledge to draw from as they ask the questions that they ask, and that's exactly the sort of student we're looking for in a university environment, a student who has the basis of rational thought, has the basis, particularly in this case, of Western thought, and is interested in expanding that knowledge.
In addition to emphasizing primary texts, Pinnacle Classical Academy requires its high school students to take classes in Latin, logic, and rhetoric. You spoke to our rhetoric class this morning on rhetoric and the Western intellectual tradition, and have spoken previously to our high school students about economics. What is your overall general impression of Pinnacle Classical Academy, particularly from your perspective as a university professor?
The students at Pinnacle consistently impress me by asking the right questions. You can tell a student who is not just engaged but has the background to engage well with the topic by the quality of questions. And of course I wouldn't expect any student to be operating at a senior level college, and that's not what you're looking for. What you're looking for is a student who wants to get there, who has the ability to get there, and to have a background as you're giving them in Latin, in rhetoric. These are weighty and valuable subjects that too often are overlooked. We get today in American universities students who are prepared with high-level mathematics or chemistry or what have you. Those are sorts of things that will teach the students at the university. I don't need high school students coming in with that level of knowledge. What I need are students coming in with a solid basis in how to think. We'll teach them the sorts of things to think about.
And then finally, you have an extraordinary background as a university professor, an author, co-host of a podcast. I'd like to give you the opportunity to speak to our audience about your work, and especially from your perspective as an economics professor as well, to recommend resources to people in our audience who wish to learn more about economics.
I and my colleague James Harrigan founded the Words and Numbers podcast several years ago. We're now top 100 or top 1% of podcasts in the country. And what we've done through our podcasts, through our op-eds, through our book, Cooperation and Coercion, is to take as our audience, as our students, if you will, anyone who's interested in learning about the world around them through the eyes of an economist, through the eyes of a political scientist. So of course as traditional students like we have at Pinnacle, like I have at Duquesne University, but also people who are older, all the way up through, James and I had lunch the other day with 3 of our fans of the Words and Number podcast. One of them was a young man, one a middle-aged man, one an old man. And this is the broad variety of people that we're seeking to educate. This becomes very important in today's society, where we ask so much of our government, and we give people such a say through the democratic process in that government. It becomes more important than ever that people have an understanding of the political system, of the economy we live in, so that they can make good decisions as citizens.
And do you have any resources you might recommend in addition to your podcast to furthering that understanding?
I have on my YouTube channel, Antony Davies, perhaps 300 videos of economics and public policy. Anyone who's interested in a discussion of public policy topics aimed at a lay person, this is the place to go. It's palatable stuff that's relevant to what's going on today.
Well, thank you so much for appearing on Dare to Soar.
My pleasure. Thank you.